Hey everybody, I'm back. Was trying to keep it pretty simple. So I've been watching my videos as usual on YouTube. That's like my training. So no, I'm not going back to college again. I'm going to get a lot of my lessons, a lot of my training, a lot of more of my experience, education from studying regularly and looking into crime scenes and investigations. And one thing that I can tell you just from being on YouTube, it's a lot of content creators that really put in some effort to try to think out of the box, and I think it's great. I don't agree with everything that I see. I'm not posting every video that I watch, but some it's kind of interesting, and I'm learning a lot just from other areas that I never considered, especially some of the computer technology, just being able to enhance video. The smallest piece of a video can be enhanced extremely to see the people and what they're doing, and not so much the audio, but it's just amazing. Like the smallest space they can enlarge from 50 feet away. So I think that's great, and I think it's very vital. My greatest concern with the Idaho Four murders is that they have the right person or persons, and that kind of equates in my brain to, one, did you get the right person? Two, are there any other actors that were involved? And then three, is the evidence supporting that? Because we don't want to find the killer and then attach the evidence. We want that evidence to support who the killer is or killers. As I've said so much, that I'm having an open mind. I'm not having an opinion of guilt. I believe innocence until proven guilty. So there hasn't been a trial. And I think we also need to keep in mind to be patient, because that trial may be set for October of 2023, but I honestly do not feel like it's going to happen, especially in that hearing in the month of June of 2023, where the defense was still waiting on evidence and important evidence, like necessary evidence to move forward on the case. You know, they need time to prepare. They need time to send evidence to the lab, to meet with specialists, people that have experience in certain fields, and that may take some time. I did hear that the defense is allowed up to 2 30-day extensions and continuances. So this case probably won't go to trial until after the end of the year, into 2024, because that 60 days will push the case into 2024. And I think it's good. Let their families, the victims' families, have their holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, if they celebrate the New Year, so that they're not starting the trial in October and leading right into all those major holidays. Because this is going to be a very difficult time for the victims' families and that community, because everything, if it goes to trial, will surely come out. The evidence that they do have, that they're not showing you, that they're not presenting, they're not talking about, that they're not highlighting in those affidavits and everything. And then, are those two roommates that were in the house that were not attacked, are they going to testify? Maybe the prosecutor doesn't want them to, but the defense could try to call them. So it's just something to think about. But I think we have to be patient. We don't want to make any judgments about everything so much, because we don't know what evidence is going to be put on in court, because the evidence still has to make it to court, meaning it's not being tainted, it's not prejudicing a possible jury. Are they going to have to say, well, Idaho is not really the right place? You know, maybe we need to move this case to a different city because it's just so prejudiced. He will not be able to get a fair trial, or they may not be able to get a fair trial if there comes a point where there is another person arrested because they were saying that they were still looking for possibly additional assailants like months ago. So maybe they feel that there was more than one killer. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I don't want things to get to the point where we're not having patience, because we're looking at maybe another 4 to 6 months. And that's a long time. You know, people want answers. The family want answers. But we have to be patient. We have to wait on the evidence. So this brings me to my video today, which just cruising YouTube, watching different content creators, listening, and one content creator asked for red flags, and boy, did I have a list of them. You know, I have a lot of concerns, so I listed maybe 10. So I'm going to just go through them quickly, and I have like a little note, because this is just too many for me to remember. And I also wrote some more notes later. Let me see. I wrote some more notes later. I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting some things. And I know I don't have it all, because I just took a screenshot of like the top, say 10 to 15 that I listed. There was quite a few, so I didn't even like try to get them all, but I just posted a few. So yeah, this was another thing I can speak on too, because I watched one YouTube content creator, and she was really speaking to things that was involving the police. And I just want people to kind of put this in their mind. Whenever you have a college town and you have to think, so you have 2 colleges fairly close to each other, that police department is going to regularly deal with 3 main issues. They're going to deal with drugs coming on campus or coming into the community. That's a really, really big one. They're going to deal with students that are drinking and possibly drinking underage. And then the third one that's very closely connected is you get a lot of DUIs, you get a lot of drunk driving, you get a lot of intoxicated youth. So you're going to do a lot of traffic stops. You're going to be spending a lot of time just testing the students to see, you know, can they safely drive this vehicle. You don't want to put them behind a car where they could hurt themselves or somebody else. So those are like the 3 main issues that you're going to see in a college town, or where students live near college campus, is the drugs, the drinking, and then the DUI. So that's just something to think about, because I think people they're not thinking in terms of the environment, especially where the house is prime for parties, is prime for drinking, drugs, a lot of activity, a lot of movement, a lot of transient people coming, going, people you don't know, people you're just meeting, people bring other people to parties. So it's kind of challenging for the police, just with the level of traffic that was probably in that house, with the fingerprints, shoe impressions, just the activities. So they have a lot of challenges, but I'm more so focusing on what I consider to be red flags tonight. So the first red flag that I listed is, what is the time of death from the coroner or medical examiner for the 4 students? Now, I know I posted a video when the medical examiner came out, when everything initially happened last year with the murders, and she was just kind of speaking freely about the scene and the wounds. But what I am really focusing in on is not so much the time that the police are trying to estimate that the students were murdered. I would like to know did the medical examiner or coroner make an assessment about the time of death? Now, we have to remember that they're working with a lot of different things to consider. The time that they know the kids were alive, the time that they're estimating the kids were murdered, and then the difference in them being murdered and then 911 being called. You have a huge gap in time. So is the medical examiner or the coroner going to be able to estimate that time of death accurately? Remember that the coroner said that she waited to come to the scene. And this is also why I felt concerned, because if the students, for example, were murdered at 4 a.m. and the coroner decided to wait until 5 p.m. to arrive at the scene, that is a difference of 13 hours. So we don't want to just rely on what the police, through their investigation, is estimating that the students were killed. We would like to have an accurate time frame. And through investigation, through those videos, through the texting and messaging and activity through the phone, through the delivery of that food at 4:05 a.m., you can kind of estimate that the students were alive at a certain time, but it would have been great if we could get the coroner to also provide an estimated time of death for each of the 4 students. So I think that's very important. I hope that that happens. I would like to know what the coroner is estimating, and I am again concerned that they allow the bodies to sit without being removed from the scene for so many hours. I'm greatly concerned, and some of that is the coroner's reasoning, and then some of that was due to that lapse in time from the murder to the 911 call. It's just a lot of hours. So I'm greatly concerned about that. So that was my first thing that I listed. My second thing that I listed, and I have a little list, long list. So the second thing that I listed that I questioned, and it's not so much a red flag, but it's just a question in my mind that I'm thinking and considering. I want to know, has it been considered, assessed, or confirmed that the weapon that was used to kill each of the 4 students, was it the same weapon? So the reason this question is coming to me, and it's not because I think it was more than one killer. That's not my reasoning or my path that I'm taking. The reason that I'm bringing this up in my mind is I know that the sheath was found on the 3rd floor, right in the bed with one of the victims, or 2 victims in one bed, but in between like a comforter. So I want to know if there has been a determination or even a consideration that the murder weapon was possibly in the sheath, or was it not even that type of weapon? For example, some people that plan on committing a murder with a knife, they may bring their own knife, or they may enter into the scene, go into the kitchen and take a knife and use that knife. So I'm thinking, were all of the students potentially killed with the same weapon? Was that a knife? I know they've never said it was a knife. They've always hinted to an object, that could pierce, that could cut. So in my brain, that's a knife. Now, was it the same knife? Was the wounds the same? And that could also go with how deep the knife is inserted. But it should be similar marks if the same knife was used. So I want to know, was the same markings from the attack on each student, or is it possibly different weapon or a different knife, or more than one type of knife, or more than one type of weapon? That's the question that I have. That's probably going to have to come from the medical examiner coroner. So I know in Idaho they have a coroner system, but I believe that they sent the bodies to be examined by a forensic pathologist. It was not the coroner that did the autopsy. So that's something, that report has to come from them, and it should be done by now. And I'm sure that's something that should have been provided to the defense also. So, but let's go on to number 3. So number 3 is, exactly how was the knife sheath found with no blood from the 4 victims? Again, if the sheath was the object that the knife was in, and the knife is determined to be, and they don't have the knife. But for example, if the knife was determined to be the murder weapon, and the knife was removed from out of the sheath, it's hard for me to consider that there was no DNA or blood from any of the 4 victims, because from what the coroner said and what I also saw in the videos, there was a lot of blood. Her words were something similar to, there was blood everywhere. Something that I already described, said before, and I believe 2 other videos. It's just hard for me to believe that the sheath would not have any DNA or blood from any of the victims on it. It would just have the touch DNA from Brian Kohlberger, allegedly, and that probably has to be confirmed through the defense having their own review of that evidence. But it's just hard for me to believe that there may not have been any DNA or blood on the sheath. So I would like that confirmed. I would like that to be tested. I would like to know through pictures and video evidence that there was no blood. I would like to see how exactly it was found, in what position, and where. Even though I know they said it, I would like to see that either through crime scene photographs or crime scene video. How exactly was that sheath found? When? What day? Was it the day of the murders? Was it at the time when the bodies were discovered? I just need more details about the sheath. Okay, so we're going to move forward. Number 4, touch DNA on the knife sheath. I mean, I've kind of beat this down on my page. I do not trust touch DNA. I know it can easily be transferred from one person to another from an object. I just don't trust that touch DNA. So I would like to know specifically when they stopped Brian Kohlberger the 2 times, did he ever hand over an object like his driver's license? I would like to see more detailed, full video of any interaction with the police when they stopped him, because those 2 stops, they appear to be set up how he got stopped 2 times in 10 minutes. So it just didn't seem believable. But also with the touch DNA, I would like to know the process that was had by the prosecutor's office. And I'm not sure if it involved the FBI or not, but I would like to know that process. Excuse me. I would like to know that process of how that DNA was determined to be Brian Kohlberger's. I would like to know that process because it was through some family history. They had to go through records to do that match, that genealogy match. So I would like to know more information about that, and they should release that to the defense. And that was something that the defense was fighting for in their motions. So I believe that was granted. So they can look into that. So number 5, why was no blood or DNA evidence leaving from the house? This is just a simple common sense thought. That is a red flag to me. In my prior videos, I know I talked about, was the killer from within, possibly one of the roommates, possibly somebody that was already there, that was known. Even just to navigate the house, that house, you would have to be familiar with it, because the way it was built, it was just oddly built. Like, just coming from the back, I would not think you would be on the second floor, but you are. Coming in from the front, it's different. So that's something, that I want to know. Was there any evidence that exited the house? Blood, DNA, fingerprints, shoe impressions. What has come of the shoe impression? What happened with the tire impression? What happened to the glove that was found outside? Did it have any DNA? The 2 male DNA that was collected, did they find out who that DNA belonged to? So it's just a lot of questions, but more so, if you're saying that the person exited the house, what evidence do you have of that? You don't necessarily have it on video. From what the defense said, they could not connect any of the victims' DNA to Brian Kohlberger, his car, his apartment, his job, or his family house. So we just have a lot of questions, and by us knowing that it was a very bloody crime scene, we would expect that there would be some type of evidence, some blood, some DNA leaving from that house. So let's move on, because we talked about that a lot. Number 6, did the entire impression outside of the house match Brian Kohlberger's tire? And number 7, was the shoe impression inside of the house a match for Brian Kohlberger's shoes? Again, you have this evidence, and, you have to provide that to the defense as well. Did any of this match? Has any of it matched? It does not sound like any of it matched him. But that's not surprising either, considering the number of people that came into the house and possibly destroy evidence or alter the crime scene just from their physical presence being there. That's not shocking to me. But I do want to know the answer to those questions. And that's probably something that's going to come out in the trial at the end of the year or next year, if it goes to trial. So let's move on to number 8. Was any of Brian Kohlberger's hair, fingerprints, or blood at the crime scene? Now, I'm not exactly sure if this is even a question at this point, because of what the defense motion said, which they said that he didn't take any of their DNA. But my question is, did he leave any of his DNA? So out of all of the evidence that was collected, was any of his hair? Hair is very easy to shed. What about his fingerprints or blood? If you're in a fight for your life and you have to fight 4 people with a knife, did you leave any of your DNA? Was any of his DNA at the crime scene? That's another important question. Any blood, anything that places him physically there. Not just a video of a car driving around in the dark where you can't see a person, or the sheath with the touch DNA. Was any of his actual fingerprints or DNA there? Move on. Number 9. Was any of the roommates or the dog's hair, blood, or DNA at Brian Kohlberger's apartment, house, car, job? So I know that animals have DNA, and it's a pretty straightforward question. I don't know if anybody's thinking about it, but if the dog had to be put into the room, was that room actually looked into for any transfer DNA that the killer could have left there, or the dog's DNA with his hair? Could the killer have taken that? And was that a match for anything that Brian Koberger had in his apartment house car job? Excuse me. Just another question. A concern. Excuse me. Number 10. Can the GPS tracking be specific to show exactly where and how long he was at the house at 1122 King Road, and what are the dates and times? So this goes back to what I've said before on here. We want that GPS to really pin down date, time, location, how long. And then can video be matched up to see what was he doing? A lot of people have cameras. I don't know if they will go back almost now. It's like 7 months, 8 months. But hopefully the police thought enough to go back and try to seek out video surveillance. But can we match that? Can we place him exactly where he is on a map, and what is around there? Is it an area that's for shopping? Is it homes? Is it just 1122 King Road? So I want to know that. So moving on. Number 11. The two alive roommates not calling the police, but calling friends and waiting hours to seek emergency help, police, ambulance. That's probably one of the biggest issues. Why so much time? Why contact friends before police? To especially render aid with those emergency services. So again, we can't change any of it, but we have to ask the why. We have to ponder, what were they doing? For example, were they on drugs? Were they high? Did they feel fearful that, they would be in trouble for their behavior, their actions? Another thing could be, if they were doing some illegal activity, were they trying to cover up that? Just so many questions that this particular red flag could lead to. But mostly, we need to know what was happening in those hours leading up into the 911 call, and we need to know, what the roommates were doing. So moving on. Was anyone else in the house? So that could kind of cover, was anybody in the house with the roommates through the night that we don't already know about? And if they were there, what was happening? Did they leave? If they did, what time? What do they know? It just leads to so many questions. So we want as much as possible transparency. We want the information, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be that easy. From what has been put out in the media, the roommates do not want to testify. So I'm not sure if they will have that out, but there's a lot of questions for them, their behavior, the time frame, what they were doing, what they heard, the knowledge that they have, the history of the house, the roommates, just the drinking, the drugging, things like that. They could only answer. For the most part, they could only answer. So, we definitely going to have some questions there. So, those were some of my red flags that I highlighted under the post. And I'm wondering, do you have any red flags? Are you seeing some things that kind of stand out? And you're wondering, how is the prosecution going to overcome this? I don't think we have to really ponder it too hard, because we still have months to keep seeing this case in the news and hearing about it. So I think we should just be patient as much as possible. Keep praying for the victim's family and the community, and just take things one day at a time, and just know that Brian Koberger is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So we want to have that mindset as well as we go forward. So I just want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, or it gave you something to think about and consider. And maybe I'll see you in the next video. So have a great morning, good night, however you want to look at it. And again, thanks for checking my video out. Have a good night. Bye.